Damo, so what episode are we up to?
We are episode 74, actually.
Took longer to tell me that.
Sorry.
Time.
No, I had to double check.
Usually you're on the ball and you're just like straight away.
I actually had to unmute the mic. Speaking of unmuting mics, we have our guest on tonight.
Yeah, tonight. So episode 74, Tim Newhouse. G'day. How you doing?
G'day, I'm good.
yeah.
Thanks so much for having me on.
So I always ask my guests, like when we get, to get the ball rolling away. So who are you and what do you do?
I would describe myself as a sort of a mixture of a composer, multi-instrumentalist, and arranger orchestrator. So
Very
basically,
cool.
I write music, I play music on a couple of different instruments, and I arrange music for artistic projects depending on what the vision is.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So like multi-instrumental, like what instruments can you play, and like how did you start this whole journey into all of this in a way?
I'm primarily a saxophonist, and then I also play flute and clarinet and piano as well, or keyboards.
Wow, okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's an adventure. So I'm sort of primarily a saxophonist, and that's kind of how I started. Lowly year 8, picked an instrument at random and went for it from there. And I sort of with flute and clarinet, that was more like I'm self-taught on these instruments, so I'm sort of more a saxophonist than anything else, and then I'm self-taught on flute and clarinet, and also kind of piano as well, even though I had piano lessons when I was very young, but I didn't really enjoy them, and saxophone was kind of like the saving grace later on for music, where like I didn't really ever think that I would love doing it, and then I started playing the saxophone and I guess it was more like I felt like I had control over music, playing the saxophone and being able to improvise and all of that sort of stuff. And then I learned how important being a disciplined musician was from initially having the freedom. And then it's all just sort of, all of those kind of little things have kind of just evolved into playing them all at various points.
That's so cool. It's really cool. But then like being self-taught, like how did you kind of, like did you look up tutorials or anything like that? Like did you learn, because for like the DJ world, like you got the circle of fifths, and it's kind of like, you have to, in a way, you kind of have to follow it to make everything sound harmonically correct. When you started like learning the clarinet and the flute and stuff like that, like, I mean, obviously, it's like a guitar, like, you pick up a guitar, you can't be Jimi Hendrix overnight, but then it's like, how long did it take for you to kind of get to a proficient level in a way, kind of thing? Because
question.
Did you ever play out and about live, right? Like,
yeah. So when I was in, I was in a band called the WA Youth Jazz Orchestra from when I was in year 11 to for about 7 years after that.
Oh wow!
And,
okay, that's yeah.
And as a saxophonist in that band, we often had to also play flute and clarinet for the music that we were playing. Because primarily the saxophone parts have those parts in them. So I just kind of basically started learning those instruments from those parts, being like, well, it's in the music, I might as well play it and learn it and contribute to what that brings to the sound. In terms of, I don't really know how long it took me. In terms of learning them, there are similarities with the fingerings from saxophone to flute and then saxophone to clarinet as well. And there are some differences, but I suppose some of it's just assumed knowledge as well. So, and then you work out the differences between them, and then just listening to the instruments as well. So although I never had flute or clarinet lessons, I knew what the instruments were supposed to sound like from just general listening and really and curious listening, and therefore, because you've still got that sonic goal in mind, I suppose you can achieve a lot through that. And then you ask people that are way better at the instruments for little nuggets of wisdom, and how do you do this? What's a better way of doing this? And you take everything on board and cobble it together.
Wow. Yeah. Really? Okay. So with that, I mean, I was going to say, because, with the wind in... Sorry, what's wrong with me today? Like, usually I can get the ball rolling, but I'm a bit stunted today. Because
me every day, don't worry.
Because it's like being wind instruments, they all, as you said, share similarities in a way, and just like made it easier kind of thing in a way, right? But then what was I gonna say?
The difference between wind and brass, as in like the
that's
sonic differenents and whatnot.
That's one
do you
thing.
want to discuss something like about that, Tim? For all our uneducated guests at home. No, it's fine.
Yeah, shit.
I suppose it just boils down to you listen to the flute a lot, and therefore you get an idea of what it should sound like, and you try and replicate the subtleties. Kind of similar to learning a guitar riff or learning something from a recording, which like sometimes it's my job to do that, where you don't have music in front of you and you play by ear and you learn from recordings. And then sometimes you've got music in front of you and you've got to execute exactly what's on the page.
Yeah.
But in terms of just listening to tone of the instruments, and then you just like try and copy it as best you can and get an idea of how you can do that better. I think that's really what it boiled down to for me.
And so what was some of your inspirations as well for like this? Because like when you were growing up, like the kind of music that you were listening to, like did you listen to quite a lot of like, you know, jazzy kind of stuff at all, or like?
I would say that in high school I had a jazz phase, and that unlocked my love of music, because within that there's a huge degree of you can get away with everything and there's no one correct answer, which I just generally really like as a concept. You know, the whole relative truth thing. There's, you know, more than one way to skin a cat kind of thing. So I suppose listening to jazz really unlocked it for me. And then this is going to sound so stupid. When I was kind of, for a few years in high school, I was like, yeah, I want to be a jazz musician. I was really gunning for that. And therefore listened to a lot of jazz music. And then when I got to WAPA, I kind of decided that I didn't really like jazz anymore, but I really liked the way that it gives a window into music. So I suppose the way that I try and play music and the way that I try and write music and the way that I try and teach music boils down to a lot of the fundamentals of how jazz music is made, but without conforming to the specifics of what that particularly is. And you're trying to embrace all genres and all modes of thought at the same time. So I grew up listening to a bit of jazz, but not much. But then I got more into it for a little bit of time, and then wasn't as into it and wanted to branch out into other things, and wanted to be more curious than that. I mean, I've always loved pop music. And then I'd honestly think that, especially in the jazz world, sometimes there can be a little bit of stuffiness about that. Yeah, and about, oh, you like pop music? I don't think it's like that so much anymore, but it was when I was growing up. And so I just kind of was like, screw this. I'm going to keep liking what I like anyway.
Well, that's it, yeah. Don't let anyone
No one can ever resist groove. I mean, and jazz has equally as much groove, but in a very different way. And so does pop, and so does rock. And I think that's what combines a lot of different things for me, is just love of groove. But yeah, I can particularly just never resist a pop song and something catchy as well. Not everything catchy, but yeah. So I listened to a fair bit of that growing up, and a bit of jazz. Not so much classical, but that kind of was a later journey a little bit. And musical theatre as well. I have grown to love musical theatre in so many ways. And being able to explore how musical theatre sort of just changes genres like that all the time, just within 4 bars, is just awesome as well. So we all kind of listen to a bit of everything, but in a broad sense, that's kind of what, at least initially, that was like for me.
Yeah, okay. So then with that, so how did you progression into like the theatre side of it and everything in a way? Like, so you just kind of, what's wrong with me today? Usually, I'm so sorry. Like, usually I'm really bubbly and like I can just keep the ball rolling, but
you're fine.
I did have a big nap before this, but
I'm gonna use a big nap after this, honestly.
So you started playing all these instruments and stuff like that, and then like, how did you segue into piano as well? Like, is it just similar? Just like, you just like, how did you just go like, okay, I've learned this instrument, and I just want to pick up another one, because like, to be able to know 4 instruments, that's pretty amazing, honestly. Like, I wish I could do something like that. Honestly, like, But
You're very kind, thank you. Okay, there's a couple of questions in that. So firstly, I'll chat about the musical theatre stuff, and then the piano thing is that can be a
backtrack.
That's a whole other story. So theatre, there's two angles to this. So firstly, when I was in year 11, a mate of mine, shout out to Cameron Taylor, who is amazing, very, very good friend. I miss that bloke. He was a year above me at school, and I don't know why, he suggested to the drama teacher, hey, can we get this year 11 kid to write the music for the show? And she was like, sure. And so I did that, and it was for a theatre show that the year 12s are doing called Grim Tales, which is like a play based on like gruesome fairy tales. And that's so I just, cool. It was awesome. So basically my role was to be in a costume like the actors, do a little bit of acting, but primarily just, I had this picket fence around me as part of the set. And I was basically on stage with a bunch of different instruments and basically just soundscaping the show. And I suppose in terms of going back to talking about control and having control over music, composing is like the ultimate way to do that. And I just loved having ultimate control over over what the music was, rather than just playing what was in front of me. So I enjoyed that a lot. And then I did it again in year 12 for the next production as well. And then after that, I kind of, with the same director, because she went and started her own theatre company called the Actors Hub, which is basically a training ground for actors that want to study at tertiary level that have left high school. And they put on like a lot of shows, and she basically just kind of kept being like, can you write music for this? Can you write music for this? And I was more than happy to. And it was like, that was just a great experience, and you know, meeting people and meeting actors and getting to know them and getting more of an understanding of what acting craft is like and how to best support them and empathize with them through the music that you make. Because, you know, it's not about you, it's about them. That was amazing. And then the musical theatre thing is like a sort of related but separate thing in terms of playing it through. So learning saxophone and then learning flute and clarinet. Woodwind players in musical theatre are always expected to play all of those instruments. And they're equally important. So I started doing those musical theatre shows. I think the first one I did was in first year uni, and it's one of the most favourite parts of my job. And being able to switch from instrument to instrument and be in this mode and be in this mode and be the high flute and then be the like roaring jazz saxophonist as well within 4 bars of each other. I just like, I love how it's done, and the writing is amazing and the music is amazing, and you get to do so many different things. And I've caught the bug, and that made me want to listen to more musicals and get an idea of how they were written, how they were orchestrated. I would really love to do more kind of work either writing or orchestrating for musical theatre as well, to be able to like use all of those different palettes of instruments. And like I do that when I compose as well, but musical theatre is amazing. And I kind of, it's kind of like anything, you just kind of do it once and you love it and you do it again and it never stops.
That's it, you just catch the bug kind of thing, like you said.
Yeah.
So what musical theatre have you done? Like what shows and stuff like that?
So we've, our season of Legally Blonde at Crown with Hammer Productions was cut short due to COVID, but we did 8 shows and we lost the last 5, but they're bringing that back up in September. So that's kind of now like a 2-part thing, but that's the most recent one I've done.
Yeah. And so like how would you go about actually like, so like with the Legally Blonde, so like they would approach you and then you'd say yes to do the music and stuff like that, but then like would you read the script, or would you like, how would you go about composing, because you're the composer for it, right?
No, so okay. So Legally Blonde is a Broadway musical that's been like, it's been performed on Broadway for years. I think it was made in the mid 2000s. So the Hammer Productions puts it on, and they hire Crown, and the show goes up at Crown, and we're basically hired as the pit musicians in the to form an orchestra. So we play all that music. Yep. So that's not a composing thing. That's like playing the parts and supporting the action on stage. Supporting the mood of whatever's going on, and it's amazing music. I wish I wrote it. It's my favorite musical, by the way. It's just so. so well done. Yeah, it's amazing to play. I would I haven't written a musical yet, but I would like to at some point and orchestrate for one, because it's a whole other world of you have to know about every style, and I'm curious about every style.
When you say every style, like what do you mean? Just the different styles of playing the instruments and stuff like that?
Well, the different musical genres. So, for instance, Legally Blonde has like some Irish jig numbers.
Okay, yeah.
and it's all contextual, so it all supports like the character development and everything. So one of the lead characters is like sort of like some of her backstory is like that she went to Ireland and wants to marry a guy from Ireland, and she eventually does in the show. So it's like the music is like an Irish feel. So I'm sort of playing like my part is like playing jig flute, kind of in a tin whistle style. And so the music all supports that genre. But then like other music is just like straight up pop, and like some of the tempo markings on those shows are just like ridiculous. Like big fat commercial pop funk is the tempo marking for Whipped Into Shape, which is like an aerobic pop kind of number.
Aerobic pop, okay.
So it's like kind of music in the style of like aerobic classes, because the character is doing an aerobic class from jail. So watch the show; it's amazing. So the plot's very layered, but so all of the music has to complement the action, obviously, and be in whatever style is being perpetuated at the time. So there's like a jazzy number. There's like there's so much, and it just kind of shifts all the time. There's like a sort of tango tarantella thing. More of like in a classical style, like for one particular number. So it just zigzags all the time, and sometimes like within the number as well. It just goes into a completely different feel, which is amazing and really, really cool. So I think all musical theatre kind of, and especially more modern musical theatre, which is what I'm more interested in, that sort of, it always just takes from everything. There's always a little bit of pop, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of rock, some great rock numbers in Legally Blonde. And, you just have to and want to play in all of those different feels and appreciate them all for what they are, and adjust your style of playing and adjust your tone in very subtle ways to kind of support that, either whether it's from a different era or just a different kind of way of going about the music.
Okay.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah. So then, like, how would you guys get, like, the cast together? Not so much the actors or anything like that, but, like, so that, for the instruments, like, for the band kind of thing, like, would you, like, how would you, so for Legally Blonde, was it just, like, selected, like, people that, know what they're doing kind of thing? Or, like, is it, like... Yeah,
everyone gets hired from a musical director.
Okay.
The musical director, shout out to Marty Pavan, fantastic bloke. And incidentally, he was actually my one of my teachers in high school for a little bit, and then he was one of my wager directors when I was going through high school and going through uni as well. And yeah, so all the, like, in terms of the people that are in the orchestra, that all just gets decided by the musical director, and like any scene, it's literally just about, okay, you try and find people that are available, and then if someone's not available, you cast the net for that part. Yeah. And it's the same with, it's similar to, if a DJ can't do a gig, you get another one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that can do a really good job.
Yeah. So then with that as well, I had a question on top of my head again, but I forgot it. So with, what was I going to say? So you said Wager before, or? Wager, sorry. So what is that?
The WA Youth Jazz Orchestra is a sort of semi-professional organisation that runs 3 big bands, and they sort of play different eras and styles of jazz music. Okay. And I credit Wajo for, like, basically every positive thing that has happened in my career, because like, I started there when I was in year 11. It's a youth band, so it's for people that are aged between 14 and 25. And yeah, it was like, it's just I don't know how to explain it. It's you meet so many great people and have so many great experiences playing music that you never thought you'd play. Everyone is just, all the musical directors are amazing and really supportive and really give you you ask them anything and they'll yarn for 20 minutes with you about it. Like it's just it's an amazing organization and it's a very unique organization to Australia. And so I played in those bands for 7 years, and the amount I learned about how to play well, how to write music well, how to learn from people that were way better than me, how to conduct, how to do a lot of different things and a lot of different skills. And they gave us some amazing opportunities. Like I got to tour, like Melbourne and Brisbane in that band as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they do regional tours as well, and you work with guest artists and guest composers from all over the world, and they share their knowledge with you and tell you how to play much better than you are, and really kick your ass, which is really good. And you learn a lot from that as well. It was just a fantastic. It's an amazing organization, and it's been fantastic to be involved with them, and the amount of opportunities that they give you is just it's just really special. Is
it a privately run thing, or is it like government?
It's a non-for-profit.
Non-for-profit. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool though, being able to have those connections, get people like, really world famous like composers and stuff like that in. Like.
And that was kind of how I made my and I hate talking about this because the whole networking connections thing I really suck at, but the people that I've met, like it all started from being around those people and being in that band. Like I was fortunate enough to meet people that were already going to uni and going to WAPA and already professional musicians when I was in high school. And then I remember just like going back to my school jazz band and being like, wow, like I feel like I've just got so much more artillery to be able to do my job well at school and like play in that band, just from having the experience of mixing with people that are at a higher level and just knowing people that were at uni before I got to uni was I can't believe that happened, but that was really useful and really, really great, because by the time I got to uni, the transition was much easier. Like it would be okay anyway for everyone really, but having that was really, really good, and just it helped me sort of be like, oh, like these people are always like around, and you don't have to learn off them when you go to uni. You can pick their brains when you're in year 11 or year 9 or whenever.
Okay. So what is wrong with me today? God damn. So with that though, like, so when you went touring and stuff like that, so how did that all kind of come to place? It's just like you were just in the band and then they just like approached you and said like, let's go to Melbourne kind of thing, and like.
So with Wajo, the tours are organised by the organisation. So there's 3 bands, and often one of the bands will do a regional tour, and so if you're in that band, you go on the tour.
Yeah.
If you've got like 5 assignments that week and you can't do it, then they find a replacement for your part. But it's basically you're in the band for the year and you get the opportunities that band gets. So there's sort of 3 tiers depending on your kind of level. And the top band generally do the like the interstate tours and things like that. So it's just organised through the organisation, and you just all get to go and hang out and play music,
have fun kind of thing. So it sounds like a lot of fun in a way. Like
it was.
How long would the tours go for, and like what venues would you guys go and play it and stuff like that?
The Wajo tours were like probably a week long. Okay. And they would often span like maybe two capital cities. We would primarily play in jazz clubs or sort of small theatres or concert halls. We'd also do like, especially for the regional tours, you do like concert for schools. So you go out to schools in the area and basically come in and play for them, and they're like, wow, you guys are really good at your instrument, and you like mix with them, and it's kind of like a private concert for the school kind of thing, and they always get a lot from that as well, which is like a great opportunity for them and us as well when we did that. So it's kind of a mixture of all of those things as well. But obviously it differs depending on what band you're in or what situation you're in, where you play. But because they were primarily because they played predominantly jazz music, most often you'd play in jazz clubs, and by jazz clubs, we generally played in sort of more listening focused venues. So probably smaller, more intimate, but like still, they'd still get really packed. But I think for that sort of music, you often have to have an appreciation for what's in the music and really listen a little more deeply. Like, of course you can dance to it and people often do, but definitely the tours that I did, it was like we were either working with a guest composer or something like that, or we'd be playing music from a variety of composers, including myself. I was fortunate enough to write for the band at points. And so it's, sort of a wide range of music, and that really suits that sort of more listening focused venue as well. But we would kind of play anywhere and everywhere, I suppose.
So with like a listening, more, intimate listening venue, is that kind of like when, like what you see on like movies and stuff like that, where it's like, dim, dark lights, and it's just like the stage is in the corner, and it's just like everyone's just sitting and chilling and just like really like into it in a way? Yeah,
kind of. The best example I can give, a couple of years ago, and this wasn't a tour, this was a holiday. I went to Europe for 2 months, and one of the places that I desperately wanted to go to was Norway. I have a real kind of affinity with Scandinavia, and I really resonate with their culture and how they go about things in a variety of ways. So I went to Norway, and I love a lot of Norwegian bands and like music from Scandinavia as well, and I was really curious to see some things that I'd never seen before in like artists that I'd never seen before. Even really obscure ones, like in Oslo, the capital of Norway, and Bergen, which is Norway's second largest city. And going to those venues, like it would be kind of similarly set up, where there'd be like a double bill, and one band would do first set, one band would do the second set, kind of thing, or it'd be one band for 2 sets. And like in those venues, just everywhere, like everyone would just, exactly like you're saying, like they would they'd all just be listening and, either swaying on the spot or just standing completely still, but everyone could do what they wanted.
But they were just like, they were into it though.
They were into it. They were really immersed. And I was just like, witnessing that was just amazing. And that sometimes happens here, but it just more often happens in those kind of places, and it's just more normalized.
It's just the difference in the culture almost, right?
Exactly. It was just really surreal and awesome seeing that. And being a part of it, and being one of the listeners, and I personally like being that way as well, and especially when I listen to music. Sometimes I look to the ground when I'm at a concert, because I don't often feel the need to look at the performer, because I'm listening to what they're doing rather than looking at them as an entertainment product. And that's a whole other discussion. But, so I really resonated with like that way of.
That's pretty good though. That's awesome though, because that's the thing is like, if you're paying tickets to go see this, it's like you're not going to go see someone jump around and dance around and this and that. Well, you're there for the music. So
everyone, like all the people that were playing would like, they'd move around and do their thing, but they'd do it in a very organic way.
And like very respectable way as well to the band, because you don't want to be talking like, or doing it.
Like everyone was silent. No one had their phones out, and even like in the set break, everyone would just be talking to each other. Like no one had their phones out.
That's
which
awesome. That's in Norway.
Very rare in our time, obviously. It was like, that's really great.
So that was in Norway though, or
so this was this particular gig that I'm thinking of was in Bergen. And it was exactly the same in Oslo as well.
Does that happen here in Perth though, or do people sometimes just like, the set break? Okay, like let's see what's happening on Facebook.
And I'm not having a go at that specifically, but I more bring that up because it's I suppose it was just such a stark contrast in terms of
just the cultural difference kind of thing.
A little bit. Like gigs are great here. And I don't really think I can comment on it, because I don't consider myself particularly well versed in any particular scene at all. But from my experience, I think this is another conversation, but I personally think that the entertainment part of it is important, but I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of, what am I trying to say?
Like you're catching my bug.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think sometimes there's more of an emphasis on the visuals than it is the actual musical product, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. It's just I don't resonate with that personally as a means of going about it, and that occasionally makes me feel really bad in my own endeavors, because I'm like, oh, like I'm not being showy enough, or I'm not being like extroverted enough on stage or anything like that, because I'm not fitting into that. Whereas I think in some ways, not that I'm really considering it at this point, but I think in some ways, if I had like a similar sort of, if I was gigging in Norway or anywhere like that, like I'd fit better into that. I in some ways I honestly feel really sort of lonely creatively here, or just in terms of like what I value and the sorts of things that I try to do, because I'm not fitting into that like panacea of, oh, this is the way that it's done. Yeah. Kind of thing. Like I've become a very introverted stage performer.
Well, that's the thing as well, because since we're so isolated here, it's kind of like, it's like what we were discussing just before we started, where it's like, we've had friends move to Melbourne, move to over east, we've had friends move to Japan, this and that, and it's just like, sometimes like, it's not that, there's more opportunity, but at the same time, there's more people. Yeah. So it's like, I've had friends actually say this about the DJ industry, where it's like, you should move to Melbourne and start DJing in Melbourne. But I keep saying to them, it's like, then I have to start at the bottom of the ladder, because I don't know anyone in Melbourne, and it's like being born in WA and Southwest and this and that. So you meet people, you network, you socialize, and then it's not that you climb the ladder, but it's just like you just become more known, and it's like you can actually find your niche, not your niche, but like find your groove, find your area that you get to hang out with.
Exactly. Kind of, and I'm on a journey to finding that, and Perth is a really good place to do that.
Yeah,
and
100%.
I'm incredibly fulfilled and lucky and fortunate with my life here and the many things that I get to do here. So like it's a sort of a separate thought that I have about it all, but it's a great place to work, and I've been really lucky, and it's just kind of all an adventure.
Well, that's beautiful though, because that's like, in a way that's the way you got to treat it. Like, some people go, oh, I'm after girls, I'm after money, or this and that, but that's the DJ industry kind of more though. But it's like just saying that you're into it because of the music, and it's like that's the thing that strives you. That's awesome.
Well, not only that, but I can't escape that feeling either. Like I don't think I could not love music and playing music if I tried. Oh, that's not entirely true. I go through phases of all that, but in just in terms of musical curiosity, I don't think I can pull myself away from that. There are definitely times where I sort of step back from some things about it, but on a core level, I suppose I keep coming back to it because I can't help but be entranced by it all.
Well, music's a gift in a way, and that's the thing, is everyone goes through phases. I mean, like, I've had an emo phase and punk phase and this and that, and
oh, when can I have my emo phase? I want that now.
So I was going to ask as well, like, how long does a set usually go for, in a way? Like, jumping back to, like, actually playing sets out and about and stuff like that. Because you also said before we went live, you're in a couple of bands as well now. And so, like, you've played live sets with those bands, right? Kind of. And then, so, like, how do you fit into all of that in a way? Because, I mean, like, obviously, you're part of the band and, you play your instrument in the band. But I just mean, like, when it comes to like actually like playing, flute instruments or the piano and stuff like that, it's like, because I don't want to say typical band, but it's like usually it's like guitar, bass, drums, and then singer kind of thing. Like, what type of genre do you guys play in those bands and stuff like that? Like,
okay,
there's a few questions in there.
Yeah, so to answer the first question, with set lengths, very much depends. I think in general, with the general original music scene, I think there's been a profound shift where you, like, when I was starting out in that kind of area, it would be you do 2 45-minute sets and a whole like night at places like the Ellington Jazz Club and things like that. That's only my own personal experience, but.
And so how long was a whole night then, would you say?
So 2 45-minute sets,
yeah, so that's
with a set break in between.
Okay,
and now I think what's happening more and more is, for a bunch of reasons, is that it's either 4 bands play like a 30-minute set each on like a, something like at the Rosemount, or where they have an original music night and they roster a bunch of bands on, or you put on a show and you do one set of music, which is like that's logistically easier to prepare, especially if it's all original or all arranged. And then you have like a support or collaborative act in the first half that does a 45-minute set as well, and therefore you draw more people that way, which is a pretty cool idea. So that's generally how it goes. So the three bands that I'm in, they're all very, very different. So I'm in Junkadelic Brass Band as a saxophonist and their co-musical director. And it's basically it's like a sort of largish brass band that do a variety of things, but most often they do like roving performances, kind of like in a New Orleans street band style. So they like walk around during parades and stuff. So so we do that.
How long have you been part of that band for?
Just over a year.
Okay, because I've had when I used to play at the Flying Scotsman, I've actually had that happen before. I've been playing inside, and it's like, okay, there's a band outside walking around. What's going on?
That's probably them.
And then they've actually come inside the pub, and I'm like, okay, I'll pause the music now. What's this? Yeah. It's like, this is interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like Junkers. Yeah.
But it was really cool though. Like I was just like, okay, I get a break now. Yeah. This is awesome.
Yeah. So Junkadelic do that sort of thing. So the percussionists all play drums that they make themselves on recycled instruments. So they play on buckets and things that are like all recycled and everything. And they hand out these, we hand out these shakers that are made out of like recycled cans and rice. And kids and people just like, you know, shake, you know, play along and all of that sort of thing. So they're a very sort of like, they sort of focus a lot on, you know, sustainability and have a really strong environmental message, which is really awesome. And they do like they also perform at like rallies and things like that, as well as like festivals. So they do a great deal. So it's the kind of a few bucket drum players and there's one of the drummers has like a really big bass drum that they've made as well, and then you have basically all of the you have a really, really big kind of tuba like instrument called the sousaphone. As the bass instrument rather than an electric bass, but we also have an electric bass player as well that does some of the gigs.
Can you look that up, Damo? Like, I've never heard of a sousaphone before. That sounds awesome.
It looks kind of like and plays kind of like a tuba, but the bell is like around kind of on top of your head, and you kind of hold it up. It's crazy. It's an amazing instrument.
That looks nuts. Like,
yeah, it's awesome. That's kind of like the really fat bass sound.
That's so cool.
And then you have like trumpets and trombones and saxophones on top of that as well. And you all kind of play together. And I learnt most of their music by ear because they kind of all learnt it by ear as well, or some of it at the very least.
Is it all originals and stuff, or is it...
Most of it is, yeah. They do some covers, but like a lot of the music has been written by like current or previous members of the band. And going forward, my role as musical director will also be to write original material for the band as well at some point in time. And I'm also currently arranging music that Junkadelic has played with. They collaborate with Indigenous artists and singers and rappers as well.
Oh, that's
sick. With a show called The 6 Seasons, which basically is a story about the 6 Indigenous seasons. Because they, in their culture, it's 6 seasons rather than 4. So it's like a really awesome like cultural collaboration. And so I'm currently arranging some of that music for people that work with Junkadelic and also the Perth Symphony Orchestra, and that's going to be played later in the year.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
So that's Junkadelic. So in terms of my role with them as a saxophonist.
How long have they been around for and stuff like that? And like, how many members have they? Like, people come and go on kind of thing. But
people come and go, exactly. They've been around. I think it's 19 years. They're having like an anniversary gig soon, which I think I'm playing in.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they've been around a long time, and they're awesome. And the lineup is kind of rotating. So as long as you have some of the drums and a bass instrument and some brass instruments, you can kind of do all of the tunes. So sometimes there's like 12 of us, and sometimes there's 6. Really depends, which is really cool. I quite like that.
But not even that though. It's like being able to hand out like little rice shakers just like to the public and try and get everyone involved. That's just that's amazing.
Ken who runs the band is and is a lot better than me at this. He's really, one of his great strengths is his just like loving nature and inclusive nature, and he wants to include everyone in what's going on, and you know, he's always like, everyone get involved, and you know, really loves the audience getting involved in everything, and you know, everyone gets a shaker, you get a shaker, and you get a shaker, and it's fantastic.
But that's awesome though.
It's awesome
because it just gives that level of just that vibe to it in a way. It's just like, just to be able to differentiate from other people, like, and other groups and stuff. It's just like, no, we're this group kind of thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So that's Junkadelic. And then I'm also in a singer-songwriter band called Cassis.
Cassis, okay.
Which is a kind of amalgamation, and it's no one can define really what the music is. Kind of like a lot of original projects. But the singer who writes all the music and collaborates with a guitarist who kind of writes the chords and harmony, and then myself and so I play keys and sax and do some backing vocals, and there's also guitar, drums, bass, and then the singer. So it's like a more of a pop rock lineup, a quintet vibe, and the singer is French. So sometimes she writes with French lyrics. And
that is so cool.
It's awesome. And then the music kind of sounds like prog rock, and there's some poppy elements to it as well, and like kind of experimental jazz as well. But a little bit of folk as well. It's kind of an amalgamation of things, but so I play in that band as well, and that's a really nice process because we rehearse regularly and always rehearse new material, and in rehearsal it's more like the material just evolves, and we try things and play it over and over until we find what works and what we want to.
Have you guys released any music at all?
Cassis have got some albums on Spotify, and they're on Instagram as well.
Send them to me though, because if it's in French, that sounds amazing. Like, as I said, I love
it's fantastic.
French music,
and Veronique's voice is really she's an alto singer, so she's quite low for a female singer, and her voice sounds really rich and awesome. It's really, really cool music.
One thing I want to ask as well, so like, obviously with Junkadelic, they've already got music like lined up and stuff like that, but then with what was it again, sorry? Cassis, yes. So with Cassis, then it's like, how would you guys go, like, do you guys have jam sessions in a way?
Exactly, right, yeah.
And then
that's what our rehearsals are.
And so the jam sessions, then it's just like, how would you guys create a track then? It's like someone would just come to this jam session with an idea, and then you just expand on the idea and everyone adds their little element, or?
Pretty much. The process is really good because so the singer and the guitarist kind of collaborate as a songwriting duo, and so they can perform duo as well, and so they write the song. So she writes the lyrics and the vocal melodies, and then the guitarist John writes kind of the chords and guitar riffs and everything. So the music kind of stems from that, and then we hear that and add our own parts based on what the chords are and what we want to complement the singer with what she's doing. And so those are the elements that can kind of change, but we've already got kind of that, like, the forms all sorted. Like, we don't really we have some say in that, but like the basic elements of the music are already made, and then we hear it and then we add what we want to it.
And so how long have you been part of that band for?
About the same amount of time, like just over a year.
And then how did you manage to meet them? It was all just like through contacts and just...
Yeah, it was through...
luck of the draw kind of thing?
A friend of mine who's a sax player as well, kind of interesting. So he's like primarily their keys player, but also does some sax, but he's like a saxophone player first and foremost, which is exactly like me. And so he was in that band for quite a while and then moved to Ireland and contacted me being like, hey, you play sax and keys. Do you want to be in this band? And I was like, sure. And it's really, really good, and everyone's really giving and inclusive, and they're a really great bunch of people to hang out with, and that obviously makes it all really rewarding as well, and a good experience, like anyone that's in any good band. That, you know, they get along with the other people in it, and like there's nothing like it. Like, that's really, really good.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's just like, you know, a good group of mates that just go and hang out, and then they just come out with creative content in a way.
Yeah.
So when you guys go and do like rehearsing in the jam sessions and stuff, like, do you guys go to a studio or like? Or...
Well, so we rehearse in the singer's garage.
Singer's garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's got a
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that's an actual name of a place. Something like, I've never heard of that before.
No. So Veronique's garage, and it's a really big one. And she's like put curtains and not like soundproofing, but like just sort of draped curtains and made it look really nice, and like there's carpet and stuff. and it's like a really nice room to play in, and we all fit in there. And so we just rehearse in there. Yeah. We used to rehearse at Guildford Grammar because that's where the guitarist teaches.
Oh, really?
Which had this little like tiny, like one of those Casio keyboards, and the sustain pedal didn't work and all that sort of thing. Like it was a really, it was a demountable, like we rehearsed in a demountable. But the garage is like really awesome. Like it's a really nice room to play in, and it just works really well. And it's good for Veronique because she just rehearses at her house. Yeah, doesn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, that's it. Just goes next door into a garage.
Yeah,
but that's the thing though as well. It's like it's just kind of like with this room. You got to make your guests feel welcome in a way, like when you have your band and you have the jam sessions, you want to get that creative content out.
This is a very welcoming room, I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But that's exactly it though, like with her garage. It's like, she's put curtains up and made it feel homely. And when you guys go and play there, it's not like concrete floors and just like echoey or this or that. It's like you actually can like get your expression at you can the creative content kind of thing.
Now, I really believe in terms of just like playing somewhere. Recording's obviously different, but like you don't need to play in a nice room necessarily. I think it's just more like just anywhere, and it's almost like if you have a weird acoustic or a bad acoustic, but to some extent, like obviously sometimes it hampers some people's playing, but I think you can kind of rehearse anywhere, and no matter how like run down it is or whatever, and that's why the whole like garage rehearsal garage thing kind of came into vogue. You can play anywhere, and like Junkadelic, they play anywhere. They play on the street. They play like they can fit onto tiny stages. They walk around. Your stage is where you walk, kind of thing. Like you can play anywhere.
Just one last thing about Junkadelics as well. So like when you guys go out and about and you go like roam the streets, stuff like that, how long would you guys, once again, like 45-minute sets kind of thing?
Yeah, usually. Sometimes half an hour, sometimes 45.
Yeah, and then like would you just do the 2 sets, or would you actually would it be like
sometimes it's 3 sets.
Yeah.
Those are long. That's a struggle.
Okay, no, that's pretty cool then. So then, what about the third band then?
The third band is a tribute band to UB40.
UB40, really?
Yeah, it's called 1 in 10.
1 in 10. Okay.
After like one of their most famous tracks.
Okay.
And
I actually don't know that one. I need to check that one out.
Yeah. I've only joined them fairly recently. And I think I've done 1 gig with them so far, but they kind of play like at venues and surf life-saving clubs and basically anywhere that will have the show. And they're a 6-piece, so I'm the 7th member, and they wanted a live sax player because there's some saxophone solos on the tracks and like a lot of brass lines, and their keys player would play all of the brass lines on the keyboard, which sounded cool, but the band just really decided that they wanted
an actual live saxophonist kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'm sort of like bits and pieces as well. So like that's my primary role, but I also fill in some of the keys parts and fill in some of the backing vocal harmonies, primarily because the bass player wants to concentrate on his bass playing and not the high harmonies. So they're basically trying to emulate a larger band, like a 9 or 10 piece, which is what UB40 are, with a smaller amount of people.
Is UB40 a 9 or 10 piece band?
In like, from what I've heard, some of their live shows, like that's what it is.
I had no
so there'll
idea.
be a couple of keys players and like 2 guitars and all that.
I thought it was like a 4-piece, like tiny, like just a standard, I guess you could say. Kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I had no idea.
Like they with the saxophone solos, like that's done by a live player. And then.
Well, I have listened to a lot of them, but not a lot of them at the same time. I need to do more research into UB40.
I mean, I'd never heard of them before I joined the band, which is terrible of me to say. I'm just a very uncultured
They're the ones
person.
that do Red One, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I play that track out and about all the time, but that's
it's awesome.
like one of the only songs. And they do Rock Lobster?
No, they
No.
don't.
Oh, do they?
That's not.
Okay.
Oh, damn it.
I was about to say, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I love that.
That's the B-52s.
Yeah, B-52s.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
They
Yeah.
also have a number in their name.
Yep. So then being a 7-piece, I can imagine that gets pretty like hectic and chaotic. Not chaotic, but like, it's just if you're all up on stage and 7-piece, there's a lot of stuff going on kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
well, funny you mention that because the gig that I've done with them was on this tiny stage at the Orient Bar in Freo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then like the sound guy also like didn't know that I was coming because I was new to the band and I wasn't on the tech rider yet. So having to like, and he did a very good job of it. Having to fit like all of us on that tiny stage, and especially with me with like my keys, like my keyboard and my saxophone and like my backing vocal mic, and you know Andrew has 2 keyboards and. You know, we've all got a lot of gear. Our drummer, who's one of the, like, he's the mastermind behind the band. He uses a sample pad and SFX to like trigger like percussion samples and all the like electronic sounds into recording, as well as like playing on like acoustic drums as well. But he's got like an electric kick to kind of emulate those sounds as well. So as well as a drum kit, he's got like a lot of stuff around him too.
That's pretty awesome though. It's just like, as I said, there's so much going on kind of thing, but it's all like, it's all orchestrated, like, you know, it's all working harmonically, working, you know, together. Yeah. So what about the fourth? Well, so you've only done one.
No, it's those 3.
Oh, it's just those 3.
And then basically I work as a freelancer. Yeah. So I, you know, if someone can't do a gig for something,
then you would do a fill-in kind of thing.
Yeah, and there are lots of people in Perth that do similar things, which is kind of nice in some ways because it's like you get to play that music, but you don't have to play it all the time, or like you experience it once and then move on to something else. Like I quite like that adaptability and being able to just kind of roam around and experience all of those different things. Like I filled in for a Bruce Springsteen tribute show. Called it's a band called the Midnight Gang.
Oh, really? Okay.
They're awesome. So they do all the Bruce stuff. And like that was really fun, but that was really stressful as well because like you're trying to emulate the recordings. You do and everyone in the crowd. This is the thing with tribute bands. Everyone in the crowd knows the solos. So like you're trying to do this like growling tenor solo on the tenor saxophone, and everyone in the audience will know it. So you have to play it like it is on the recording. Whereas in some situations, and in jazz and in some contemporary music, like for instance, when I do gigs with DJs as a saxophonist, where I just kind of riff over the music, you're kind of just improvising for the whole time based on the key. Whereas with the tribute band, you're learning the solo as it was performed, just completely different.
Okay. So then you said with DJs, like, have you actually worked with DJs and done?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, as a saxophonist. So often people will hire like a DJ sax combo. Okay. So the DJ obviously plays for the whole night or whole wedding or whatever the event is, and and the saxophone will kind of join them on the tracks. And will it just be specific songs and stuff like that? Or? Yeah, sometimes. Like there's some music from the EDM genre that's like synonymous with the saxophone, like Jubel. Everyone wants a Jubel. I don't think I've heard that one actually. Oh, it's got this like saxophone riff that lots of people know. That's like all of that stuff. And it's like and people always request it at weddings and stuff. And because the saxophone plays that melody, they sort of grow up having that affiliation with the instrument, and therefore they request that song for their wedding. And sometimes they want like that live element, like someone playing the instrument and having that visual effect as well as hearing the sound of the instrument live. Yeah. So sometimes it's like that, but often it's just like you're playing DJ music and you're just playing whatever. Yeah. Yeah, you're just playing backing track, and then as you said, just or improvise. Like whatever the DJ is doing. And often for me it'll be I've never met the DJ prior to coming to the gig. Really? And you just like you don't know any of the songs they're playing, and you just kind of just wing it almost. Yeah, exactly. I can imagine like you can get like, well, would you get a bit nervous as well when it's like you've never met the DJ before, you're going to the gig, like have you done things like that with the bride and groom, where you've met the bride and groom, you haven't met the DJ or anything like that? No, often with that it's like you get hired through the like entertainment company that hires the DJ or something like that. Yeah. So you're not really often directly liaising with the bride and groom, you're liaising with the entertainment company who are liaising with the bride and groom. Yeah, okay. So then you just kind of rock up and you don't really know anyone. And that happens quite a lot for some gigs, especially as a freelancer, and that's just part of it.
But it would be a lot of fun though. Like I can imagine, like you just learn so much on the fly, and then just like being adaptability kind of thing in a way, right?
Yeah, it makes your ears work hard, which is a good thing.
Exactly, yeah. And then, like as I said, like you learn so much from doing just the variety of gigs kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
as you said as well, like being like filling in for things like the Bruce Springsteen band. Like you get to learn how to play Bruce Springsteen songs, and then you get to do that a little bit, and then like go off and do other stuff.
Yeah, and I think just versatility in general is so key, and not just versatility, but being curious and not poo-pooing something if you either don't understand it or haven't. And of course, like everyone is allowed not to like things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As musicians, like if you understand how a particular thing is done. Even like there's some saxophone, like a Careless Whisper is a good example where like everyone it's one of the songs that's most famous, bunny ears, for the with the saxophone, and a lot of people love it. And I don't particularly love it, but that's like sometimes part of a job is learning how to play in that style with like a lot of vibrato, which is where you basically make the sound more like whoa, 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 because the saxophone players that play that music play in that way. So sometimes it's just about, if you don't like something, I think just being objective and being curious and going, okay, this is how I emulate it. I don't have to like everything, but then also just being really curious and being open to everything.
Well, that's the beauty of it as well, though, because it's just like, instead of getting stuck in, say, like with DJs in a way, like this might be controversial, but it shouldn't be controversial, but it's getting stuck in like one genre almost, and then it's like not actually trying to do other things outside of the box, or doing this or doing that, or like DJs that go out and play just the same set every single week in and out. It's actually like when you learn different things and learn different songs and like learn how to mix things or do this or do that, it's just it's a growth kind of thing.
And there are a lot of people that specialize, and that's equally as valid a pathway.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly it.
What sparked a lot of the joy for me first getting into it was just being able to bounce around
and just do all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah.
So I should have written up notes. I'm so sorry. This is still Damo, do you have any questions? I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna a couple. Like, do you actually enjoy playing in these cover bands? Like, you said you've always really loved the amount of control you've had over music. Do you actually enjoy the break that these cover bands give you and just let you just hang out with good people and just play songs that you are probably a fan of? Is that a good way of thinking of it?
I genuinely enjoy playing all of the music. What's going on at the moment, and like this, probably even 2 years ago, I wouldn't have felt like this at all. I'm actually going through a bit at the moment where I'm not as comfortable on stage as I used to be. And so that's like not necessarily related to the musicians or the music that I'm playing, but it's more of a like general thing, like being uncomfortable, either being the focal point or like just having people look at me or being the focus. And like when I was in school, I was a diva. Like I loved the attention. I was an attention whore. And I'm slightly less of an attention whore now. But I'm making baby steps to that. I still have a lot of growth to do in all of those areas. But like growing up, the stage never bothered me. And especially through high school and especially through uni, like it was I never got the stereotypical butterflies or anything like that. And it's not like the type of performance anxiety where you get like just before you go on stage, you get either really hyped or really out of control nervous. For me, I've kind of had a bit of an experience of I get anxious during and after gigs to the point where like after I do a gig, I'm going to want to go home straight away. And sometimes I'll be crying in my car going home being like, I just want to sleep. I just want to have a cup of tea. I just don't want to be around people. I don't want anyone to like give me a compliment on my playing because like it's never like I'll be really critical of my own playing as a result. All of that stuff. And that never used to happen, but like sort of a year and a half ago to 2 years ago that started happening and is still happening. So I'm honestly in a sort of stage at the moment where I'm just having to regulate that a little bit and maybe not take as much on. And I think it may be that, and like I'm not planning on. I thought about it, but I'm not planning on stopping doing gigs, because I do genuinely like it, but like I've had challenges with that as well, and I think I'm actually getting to a point where I might want to step back from a little bit. I don't know when I'll get to that point, but all of these experiences have made me reflect on that as well.
Well, it's like what I said before. It's all a learning curve in a way, and being self-critique on yourself isn't a bad thing, because critiquing yourself, then it's like you're striving for perfection almost in a way, and you want to do better, and you like, it's a similar thing with the DJ industry as well. Like for me, right, I record all my mixes, every single gig I play I record, and then I actually re-listen to it, because then it's like if I stuff up during a set, then I'll go, okay, I stuffed up, like I get a little bit frantic after the gig. I'm like, oh, holy shit, like I can't believe I did that kind of thing. But then when I re-listen to my set, then I'm like, it wasn't actually that bad. What am I talking about? Or I'll go, okay, well, I know that I did that wrong. I'm not going to do that again. But then, I mean, like, as I said, like it's not trying to be a perfectionist, but it's at the same time, it's like you're trying to be better, and it's not a bad thing at all. It's a really good thing in a way.
Of course,
it's like it's a really good thing, because then it's not just going, okay, well, I just did the same gig that I've done every other gig. It's actually like, okay, well, I'm trying to improve kind of thing.
I mean, my difficulty at the moment is not so much with the perfectionistic stuff, but it's more of an image thing, and like how I look on stage and things like that, and just like knowing that people are looking at you. Whereas, like sometimes that's not an issue, especially like when I play keys. Often you're at the back of the stage and you're backing a singer or something like that, and because you're not the focal point, and you can hide it, and it's really bad of me that this is happening at the moment, and but like sometimes on stage I want to hide in a corner, and sometimes you just can't do that, and especially not when you're a solo saxophonist. That there was a wedding I did recently. It was with a DJ, and I was hired to basically like play, but like roam around the dance floor at a wedding reception. And clearly, that is a situation where people are going to naturally look at you, both because of the instrument you're holding. It's all golden and shiny.
But yeah, you're wandering around though at the same time. Like
yeah, exactly. And you're like, having to do that, and your job is for people to notice you, and. Yeah, like I'm honestly having a bit of difficulty with all of that stuff at the moment, and sort of working through that and dealing with that.
Honestly, I don't blame you though in a way, because like if you're walking around a wedding and it's like, you got to make sure the bride and the groom are having their magical night, and then you're walking around and everyone's kind of like looking at you. It's like the pressure's on in a way, and that's the thing about it. It's like it's a good thing to be under pressure, but at the same time, it's like it can, it gives you jitters and makes you worried in a way. It's the same thing with me. Like when I go and do weddings and I have to get on the microphone, I get so nervous, because I can go and play music and do a good job and, do this and do that. But the minute I go like, ladies and gentlemen, the bride and groom are going to enter the building. Can everyone stand up, please, and raise their glass? It's just like the nerves kick in and just like, freeze up and start getting anxious in a way. But it's like, the more I do it, the better I'm getting at it in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Do you feel the same way as well, almost? That like the more you throw yourself in the deep end, that you can... Not
really, actually. Okay. I'm actually, because as I said, this has been a very recent issue for me. It never used to be a problem at all. And so like... yes, I'm dealing with it, and I'm trying to come up with better strategies and things like that. And like my psych's been really good for that as well. And just generally trying to be self-aware has been really good for that as well. But like, I mean, it can be, that experience can happen for a lot of people. That's just not currently what I'm going through at the moment.
Yeah.
To like, I'm realistically, I might never get back to that point where I'm totally comfortable on stage, but I might not.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's just the self-development thing. It's finding yourself and finding, how... who you are in a way.
Yeah.
Not everyone's the same, I know
exactly right.
I know people, I've got a good friend of mine who can't go on stage unless he has a 6-pack of beer. And it's like, I've explained to him, it's like, but don't you DJ quite, all over the place? Well, it's the only way I can do it in front of people. And it's like, okay, like, it's how some people do it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So as I said, just keep figuring stuff out, then you'll find the ultimatium in the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where Well, actually, I want to ask about like, composing music and stuff like that. So did you learn about that actually at uni and stuff, or?
Yeah. So my degree at WAPA was in composition.
Yep.
And so I did my Bachelor of Music with honours, which involved doing 2 recitals, one in third year, one in my honours year.
Okay.
Where basically you present your original music.
Yep.
In terms of, sorry, what was the question?
Just like with composition and stuff like that. Like I was going to lead into like, how would you rate the degree that you did, kind of thing, like the course. Like, like if someone was starting out, would you definitely recommend it to try and actually get into that field and into that area, kind of, almost, or?
The whole studying versus not studying composition thing, I think either pathway is good. I personally loved just it wasn't so much that, like, I did definitely learn a lot. It's a really great course, primarily because you're like, everything's so open and you can go in literally whatever direction you want. And quite frankly, and the jazz course is a great course as well, but I personally found that doing that particular course was really limiting for me. Other people have a very different experience of that, which is completely cool, but that was my experience. So the composition course that I did was really, really good for that. It was, for me, it was more just like about trial and error and trying ideas and being able to have the support in doing that, both from other musicians that I played with and that I got to ask very nicely to play my music, and the lecturers that you learn off that are way better than you, and for me, like, having some composers in my year that are better than me and way better than me. Shout out to Alex Turley, because he's a mate of mine, and he was in my year, and he writes amazing orchestral music and writes for the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra and all of that sort of thing. He's incredible. I love his music so much. So just, I suppose for me, it was more about being surrounded by a lot of people that did not similar things, but like that are on their own journey to writing their own music and doing it in their own way, and you just kind of pick off things from that. So I really enjoyed it, but I don't think you necessarily have to do a formal qualification to be a good composer. I think you just have to be musically curious and
exactly like you said before. It's just, you just got to be into it. Like you just got to be really intrigued by it and just like captured by music itself.
And to try stuff as well, and to often to have your music, live music being played by live people, kind of thing. Like there's nothing like that.
And so, have you written some original music as well and everything like that, or?
Yeah, so I did the WAZO composition project a couple of years ago. So I got to write for a 14-piece chamber orchestra made up of WAZO musicians, which was awesome.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Like really cool, actually.
Yeah.
So how does something like that even? How do you go about even doing something like that? Because in 14-piece, like, it's like, okay, the drums do this, and then the clarinets do this, and like, how do you construct something like that? Like, because like, say for example, like, electronic producers, like, you can sit there and go kick, snare, like chords, and then away you go. But then, like, how would you? Like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to make before? Like, because like, how did that come around? So like with the 14-piece, like, you kind of just, someone approached you and said like, do you want to have a go at it? And like,
the composition project is an initiative that WAZO sets up. So you apply for it, and then they pick 4 sort of young composers every year to be part of a program, and you all work with the musicians and workshop drafts and things like that. So it's a whole program that you apply for.
How long does it go for then and stuff?
It's sort of spread out over like a sort of 4 to 5 month period, where you have like every month you submit another draft, and you submit 3 drafts, and then you submit the final piece.
Okay.
Which is a really good way of doing it, because every draft gets better. In terms of writing for large ensembles, so I got into that primarily through writing for Wajo, which is the Wajo bands are 17 to 18 people, made up of saxophones and woodwinds, trumpets, trombones, and like a jazz rhythm section, so piano, guitar, bass, drums. And then like writing for orchestra is just kind of like writing for a bigger amount of people, but there's still a few basic elements. Mostly there's still a few basic elements. So I suppose like talking about kick, snare, and chords, like those things are often still present in in that type of music, but you're assigning it to more people.
Yeah.
So you can have a 4-note chord, for instance, where one note goes to one instrument, etc. But you can make that happen with 70 different instruments, depending on what range all of those instruments are comfortable in. And you can make a 4-note chord with many, like a whole orchestra of instruments, or 4 instruments, or 8 or 12. And then it's about having a similar amount of elements that you would normally, but it might be that you're assigning different amounts of people to it, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense in a way for me. As I said, I'm learning a lot through this. So, but that sounds so awesome in a way, because it's with your how long did it take? So it took you the 5 months to be able to make the track, right? Like to be able to actually make the to write the piece, right? And
so I had an initial idea, and then it's by the first draft, it's kind of all done, but you're tweaking things, or you might be changing a section, or adding a section, or taking away, trimming the fat, or realizing you have things that don't quite work and taking it out. Kind of like writing an English essay and cutting out the paragraph. It's like bullshit.
And so how long would it actually go for then? Like 3 minutes? Like 5 minutes?
My piece for Wazoo was 8 minutes, I think.
That's awesome though.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because like 3 minutes, like, you know, you can put a lot in 3 minutes, but in 8 minutes, like you can take people on a journey kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, the longest piece I've written is a continuous... There's 2 examples. A few years ago, I wrote a continuous 30-minute suite that was in 5 parts.
Wow.
For Wajo, actually. When I was composer in residence with them in 2018, and basically wrote a continuous 30-minute piece of music, but it was in parts. And I've done a similar thing with similar length with my original band a few years prior to that for the Perth International Jazz Festival. And back when I had an original band. And then I wrote, for my honours year, I wrote a semi-continuous 40-minute saxophone concerto performed by my friend Erin, who's one of the most amazing saxophonists there is. And that was for kind of chamber orchestra and saxophone as well.
But 40 minutes, wow! Like, and then so that got played out and about, and like.
So that was my recital was in the Whoppers Music Auditorium, which is kind of like a smallish concert hall vibe. And then we also did it at the Dress Circle Bar at His Majesty's
theatre.
Yeah. Not the main theatre, but like this awesome little like sort of like stage with like 100 people, like 100 capacity, just in that little kind of upwards bar, kind of like what the Astor has with the upstairs venues, kind of a venue within a venue thing. And we did that at Fringe for 1 year, kind of like a few months after my honours recital, just because we wanted to do it again.
But still, that's amazing though. Like 40 minutes, that's a proper journey. Instead of like, because 8 minutes is a journey, but like 40 minutes it's like
again, it's in parts. So this concerto is in 4 movements with 3 interludes.
Okay.
And another long form thing I've written, I wrote a song cycle, but for voice, piano, and tenor saxophone, which Erin as well. She played saxophone for that as well, and we came up with the idea together. And then my friend Leah, who's an amazing classical and jazz vocalist, sung the words, and that sort of was a semi-continuous kind of 35-minute cycle, but it was broken up into like sort of 6 or 7 individual songs.
Yep. And then so like how long would the breaks be in between, kind of thing? Interlude in a way. Is that what you kind of meant?
Sometimes it'll be like you stop one and then immediately start the other, but it's like a continuous set, so like no applause except at the start and the end kind of thing.
Yeah, so the music would just dip and then just pick back up again.
Yeah, but for the Wajo Commission, I would write interludes that were more like soundscapes, so they would last for kind of 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah. Just
to kind of bridge from one movement to the other.
Yeah. But still, that's so cool. And then, so you said that you had lyrics as well written up for it. So then, like, how did you go about writing the lyrics? Like, what was the move behind the motive behind the lyrics from it. Because, you know, like, say, like, for example, when we interviewed Joe and the Giants, they said, like, you know, they throw their heart and soul and, like, things that are happening to them and, like, things that have, you know, affected them in their everyday life kind of thing, and they throw that into their music with, like, so 40 minutes with lyrics. Is that, yeah, like...
So the lyrics were written by my partner at the time, who did a lot of, like, she wrote a lot of poetry and things like that, and she did her degree in or at least her honors in creative writing, and, like, wrote plays and things like that. And she was a really good lyricist. So it was sort of a collaboration between like my music and her lyrics. And the subject matter though came from Erin, the saxophonist, because it was our idea. And like yourself, she grew up in Bustleton.
Okay.
And we came up with this idea to write a song cycle about the southwest of WA. So, like, Bustleton, Margaret River, and there was, like, a song for each of them kind of thing. And we took a trip down there, and a couple of trips down there actually, to, like, gather inspiration for that, and to, you know, to find out more about Erin's background as well, and everything like that, which was awesome. And then the lyrics kind of flowed through there, and then I would basically set those lyrics to music, and everything would kind of happen from there.
That's so awesome, though.
Yeah, it was a really great collaboration.
Because it sounds like there's just so much that just helps make it what it is in a way. Like, you know,
yeah,
like it's not just like, as I said, like, you know, sit down on a laptop and just, you know, make a song in 2 or 3 days. It sounds like, you know, there's so much thought, and there's like there's a lot of thought that goes into all of that stuff, by the way. There's so many, like, and I'm only just scratching the surface on production myself, but there's so much that goes into it in every sound. Like, what am I going to do to this sound? How, and, you know, same thing, how am I going to flow from this to this? There's a lot of stuff that goes into that as well, and I have a huge amount of respect for anyone that makes a career working in that field and writing music in that field and everything like that. It's bloody hard. I just wanted to quickly say as well, just before, because I kind of don't want to, contradict myself. I think that's what I'm looking for. But the idea is that, you know, if you sit down on that laptop, though, I mean, obviously you can create works of art. Of course you can. Like, you know, people can.
Yeah, in a different way.
Exactly. It's just a different way of doing it. But then, as I said, like, to be able to actually, like, you get like a 17-piece, you know, just to be able to make everything just happen. It just sounds like an experience in a way. Because I've always wanted to go to, like, you know, His Majesty's Theatre or something like that, and actually go watch, like, some sort of, like, you know, go watch an orchestra or something like that, or just find something like that, because it, like I said, it would be an experience to go see it. It's not a nightclub, it's not a pub kind of thing. It's a completely different world of music almost. So we've only got around like 10 minutes left. I wanted to ask as well, so, like, where do you want to kind of go, like, your journey in a way? Like, where would you say that you'd be, like, you know, not contempt, but, like, where you'd be happy? Because, I mean, by the sounds of, like, you know, you're loving everything you're doing right now, and it sounds like you're just on a wild ride almost. But then, like, you know, where would you want to see yourself in, like, 5 years, 10 years kind of thing? Like,
there's
playing in Norway? Like
maybe. Yeah, there's a lot I want to do with my life. I think, firstly, I'm already really satisfied with what I've already done. And I think that's really, that feels really good, because I know that I'm still very ambitious and tenacious, or I feel very ambitious and tenacious. So there's still more that I want to do. And I think, like, I think if I didn't feel like that and wanted to do something else completely, I wouldn't feel bad about that at all, because I'd feel really satisfied with what I'd already done.
And the achievements, the accomplishments, like,
well, or just the experiences that I've been fortunate enough to have, and that people have just the fact that people have, like, even supported or cared at all, like, throughout at various stages, is, like, bloody amazing.
Well, I just wanted to say as well, like, when you've played your, like, when your music is played out and about, and then people have, like, given you a round of applause and stuff like that, like, I can imagine that just hits you hard, right? Like, this is mine, like, I wrote this kind of thing, right? Yeah,
and that's why I love to compose. And I suppose that's one thing I definitely want to keep doing, is just authentically writing music that I want to write, and having the space for that. And truthfully, I probably don't have the like creative space in my brain for that right at the moment, purely because my my day job as a music tutor is like quite hectic at the moment, and I absolutely love my job as a music tutor as well. So I think I'm organically maybe focusing on that more at the present time. But I think I definitely just want to keep writing and keep creating first and foremost in a way that makes sense to me and that is an authentic experience. Anyone that composes music will tell you that. Like we're all just trying to write something authentic. I think I mentioned earlier, I'd definitely love to complete a musical and potentially work with a book writer. I have this really silly idea that I'm actually taking more and more seriously. I have this idea to make Bachelor in Paradise the musical.
A Bachelor in Paradise musical. So what's Bachelor in Paradise? Oh,
so like it's a reality TV show where there's like so it stems from a Bachelorette series where like you have it's a reality show where you have someone that's like looking for love and they have like a choice of 10. So a Bachelorette would have a choice of 10 men, and they get slowly eliminated one by one, and she like goes out on dates with all of them and then chooses one. And then Bachelor in Paradise is like people that have already been on the Bachelor and Bachelorette and like not won. Or sometimes the people that win do, like when they break up with the Bachelor, they sometimes go on it, and sometimes previous Bachelors go on it. It's all dramatically awesome. So that's kind of like a free for all where they're all just like hanging out and like trying to find love, and or just kind of like having fun in Hawaii or like a tropical location.
Yeah, like Fiji or something.
Fiji, exactly. Yeah. So I kind of want to write that experience as a musical somehow.
That sounds very cool. Like, it doesn't sound like a silly idea at all. Like,
I'm honestly really like, I'm really quite into the idea, and I'm going to try and make it happen at some point. I think more broadly, already mentioned the like authentically writing music thing. I think I would just like to be able to, so I've got one studio album out currently, and I'm currently working on a second one. I think I would like to just keep releasing music and working with different people and with different projects, like the Song Cycle collaboration and the concerto that Erin very graciously let me write for her. Things like that, working with other creatives, whether it be other musicians or artists or book writers or theatre. I've loved writing for theatre. Maybe having my own original band at some point again. I'm probably not in that space currently at the moment, but if I felt like that was a worthwhile thing, I would love to be able to do that again in some form.
It's just such an interesting thing though, because like original bands, they're amazing and they're such an experience and a half, but at the same time it's like, you know, people like cover bands in a way, like in Perth at least. Like that's from my experience, and like Damo can back me up on that as well. Like people just like going and hearing things they know in a way. Yeah, and that's the same thing with the DJ industry. Like
which makes what I do very difficult, in some ways. And I think I'm probably more along. I feel like I think more like a producer and like an orchestrator now, where I control all the elements and maybe and sort of have more of a studio approach, which I'm really enjoying. And the whole like being uncomfortable on stage thing and the whole live thing like probably is turning me off from performing in public again with my own music. But like that might happen at some point. Who knows? I would also really like to. I'd like to do further study. I've been thinking about doing a master's or a PhD in composition, or even a master's of teaching, because I love teaching as well. I love it a lot. It's incredibly fulfilling and rewarding, and I love that job.
I can imagine though, because that's the thing is like it's like what I've said about kind of like with this. It's like, you know, we could interview someone and then 5 years down the track they could be over in LA or something like that. Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's like you could be teaching a student. And there's like they're really talented, really gifted, and they're so into it. And you're like, yeah, you're teaching them, you're helping them out. And then, you know, 5 years down the track, they could be doing something amazing kind of thing.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think I would like to go back to Scandinavia and particularly Norway and either study there one day or just like collaborate with musicians there and get and just kind of experience that as well at some point. But honestly, I'm pretty happy doing all of the things I'm doing now, and the only thing I probably would want to do at the moment is give myself some more creative space and let that take me where it takes me. And then even more broadly, what I want to be doing is being a good person and an authentic person and being helpful to the world and helpful to the people that are around me, and genuinely just trying to be a good
just a good human being, right?
Yeah, and just being a better human and you know, looking at everything and just trying to operate with humility, which I'm not very good at doing. But yeah, just
we all have our ups and downs.
Yeah,
but I mean, like
doing all of that and being better and continuing to be better. And that's more important than music. So that's a more broad answer. But musically, basically everything that I'm doing now, but I'll probably balance it differently in the future. But I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's it, because like 5 years, it's such a long time.
It is.
And it's the same thing with, like, you know, 2019 happened and it's like, yeah, everything's normal. And then 2020 happened. And oh yeah, we got COVID now. Like, what's going to happen? Like,
well, yeah, we don't know whether we're going to be able to tour or pull any of those levers.
And that's exactly it. And like, even as you said, like maybe study in Norway. Who knows what's going to happen?
Well, yeah, it's looking less and less likely at the moment.
Exactly, because, you know, like I've said this to a few friends and I kind of mentioned this today. It's like, you know, in the next 10 years, we might have another one. You know, we had swine flu and bird flu and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But they never went worldwide.
2009 vibes.
Exactly, but it never went worldwide though.
Yeah.
And now COVID's gone worldwide. So it's like, you know, we might get butterfly flu or something. I don't know. something whack.
That is pretty whack. I love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, do we have any comments or anything as well? And would you like to add anything as well before we wrap up at all, Damo?
Not particularly, no. I'm just checking the chat real quick.
But this has been a really good conversation, honestly. Like, I don't know much. Like, I know a little bit, but like I said, I learned a lot today. So I'm really happy with that. So thank you for teaching me, actually. So yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's always really nice to be thought of and to be able to yarn. I'm a big yarner. Always will be, probably. So it's really nice, and I really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Shout out to Jet and Mitchell, always showing us some love in the chats. We always appreciate it. Thank you so much. And shout out to Tim for being our guest for episode 74. We always appreciate it so much. Yeah. And we're always happy to hear your yarns. We're glad to know that you were a yarner when you came on. That makes it for a great episode. And
as I said, I reckon we missed out on like quite a few topics and all sorts of stuff. But like we still covered so much though. Like it's very interesting stuff. Because like I said, I've never had I've always been interviewing DJs and electronic music, but this is like dive into the other side, and this is just so interesting, so cool. Like I said, the 14-piece thing, like having like a 45-minute, the jazz thing, it's so cool.
It's a rollicking adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much, Tim, though. And yeah, later on down the track, if you'd like to come back on, 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd love to get you back on.
Yes, please.
And the thing is as well, like maybe at the end of this year, because I've been telling people like from last year's season that we would start doing like double episodes where we like, get 2 or 3 people on, have like a discussion and all.
Nice.
And so like if you'd be keen for that, I'd love to have you on. Because then we'd actually, I try and pair quite a few people up, and we can just have like one big discussion about everything. And
man, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. All right, awesome.
That could go for 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. We've actually had a podcast before that lasted like...
We did, yeah. That was more of a live stream to see if this thing would work.
Yeah, so one of the very first ones we did, like, wasn't it 7 hours or 5 hours or something like that?
It was between 5 to 7 hours.
Yeah, it was insane. We
got
really drunk, actually. And then we got copyright strike because Damo...
Because we
got so drunk live on Facebook, and then
we didn't have the music, so
when that happens,
so we thought we dodged it because we didn't have the music playing in the back. Well, we had the music off, only we could hear it. None of the people in the stream. But we were screaming it so loudly that the algorithm picked up on it and claimed us for singing that song.
Yeah,
which is shows that hey, maybe we can sing on tune. That's
reach.
All right. So thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And then for next week we have just got to double check. We got Frankie Marcy on. So we'll be talking about No, it's not Frankie. I can't remember. Shit. I'm pretty sure we've got the guy that runs Respawn coming on next week. And Respawn is an event in Perth that's all cosplay and stuff like that. So basically they'll hire out places like The Game, which is the Aberdeen Hotel.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then literally, apparently it's like they have the TVs all set up and it's like Nintendos, PlayStations, everything. Have a massive dance floor, like, you know, DJ and all sorts of stuff. And then just people just rock up, cosplay and just like hang out.
Amazing.
And it's just like, it's a culture that, you know, in Perth, it's great we've got kind of thing. Like, you know, because we're so isolated, we're so small, but at the same time, you know, it's how many people? 3 million?
About 3 million.
Yeah, that's still a lot of people. Like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, 3 million's a lot, but it's not 1 billion or 460 million is America.
330 million.
330. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. And then, yeah, let's wrap it up, Damo.
We have the outro song playing right now.
Yep.
So thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Yeah, and we got a wave. Damo makes
Yeah,
it.
wave.
Damo
Wave.
makes us
No,
a wave.